Of quorum.
Councilmember Simpson,
Here.
Councilwoman Simpson,
Here.
Councilmember Townsend, Mayor Skipworth,
Here.
Councilmember Brantley, Councilmember Schick, Councilmember Linton.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Move on to item 2, the invocation. Councilman Simpson, would you please lead us?
Let us pray. O Lord our God, how excellent is your name. From the rising of the sun to the going down of the same, your name is great and greatly to be praised. Every good and perfect gift comes from you. We ask your blessing upon this meeting, upon the staff, the citizens, the elected officials, this city, this county, and this great nation in this state. Keep us all under your protecting care. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. First, the United States flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now the Texas pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. All right, next up, we have item 4, announcements and presentations. Announcements concerning items of community interest. No action will be taken or discussed. Council member comments regarding items of community interest in accordance with Texas Government Code, Section 551.041, .0415. Item 4A, council comments. We'll begin with Councilman Linton.
I knew you were going to do that, Mayor. Good evening, everybody. Just had 4 items. On July 28th, I adopted a dog from Bayou Animal Services. My dog Honey passed away 4 months ago from cancer. The shelter's meet and greet program allowed me to bring my remaining dog Eliza to socialize with adoptable dogs to help find the best match. I asked to see those dogs who had been at the shelter the longest and who were dog friendly and decided on a 3-year-old black Labrador retriever full of energy, named Marvis. I'll continue to help those dogs get adopted. I did not pick, since there were many good candidates. The process at the shelter was thorough and efficient. Nina did an awesome job, Nina and the rest of the staff. Thanks to the staff of Bayou Animal Service for all you do and for all your help. Go adopt a pet from Bayou Animal Services in Dickinson, Texas, which is a no-kill shelter, and spay and neuter your pets. Number 2. This past Friday, there was a fire at Courtyard Park Apartments. Fortunately, nobody was hurt, but 2 pets did not survive. Thanks to the first responders for doing all that they do to keep us all safe, including Dickinson, Galveston, Texas City, Santa Fe, and League City fire departments. And also to M.I. Lewis and the Red Cross for assisting those impacted by the family, some who lost everything. 2 more items. The heat, a reminder that we are currently under a heat advisory until 9 p.m. on Wednesday. We have been experiencing this heat wave since early June. Please remember to take the proper precautions to prevent impact to humans and animals. The vegetation is also being impacted, so be smart when watering plants and lawns and do it early in the morning, not in the middle of the day during 100-degree heat. I used to hike and camp frequently, and water is our most precious resource, so please show it the respect it deserves and apply reasonable conservation efforts. Currently, the U.S. Drought Monitor indicates that our area is at D1 moderate drought, with D4 exceptional drought being the maximum. Last item, hurricane season. The Atlantic hurricane season ends November 30th, and the peak is September 10th, with most activity occurring between mid-August and mid-October. Please be prepared with water, food, medicine, important documents, and survival gear. Make a checklist, of which many examples can be found on the internet, including at cdc.gov and redcross.org. That's all I had.
All right, thank you. Next is Councilman Schick.
Thanks, everybody, for showing up, city staff and the members of our community. We really appreciate when y'all show interest in city government. It's one thing to sit up here and talk to an empty room. It makes kind of life worthwhile when we have some smiling faces out there. So we appreciate y'all coming. Just to reiterate what Fred said, the fire department did a wonderful job on the apartments out there. They got the fire knocked down very quickly. Keep in mind that these are volunteers, and we really show them would like to show them our appreciation for what they do. League City and the rest of them joined in, but our own homegrown fire department did a wonderful job. I know Jenna's going to touch on this, but I need to remind people when we go back to school here. In the past, the lights and the signals for the schools have been iffy time-wise. It always takes them a week or two to get the signals working correctly. If you have a situation like Hughes Road where you're in between two schools, just remember to pay attention to what you're doing. Kiddos will be walking, it'll be new. Parents will be trying to figure out which driveway to turn in. So just a little patience around the schools. Fred touched on the heat warnings, just very important that we pay attention to ourselves in the heat. When in doubt, sit down, cool off, have a drink of water. I did speak to the water department about the meters that they're changing out right now, and I emphasize that the public needs to be notified in advance before their water is turned off. It's been kind of iffy on that, so expect a knock on the door at least 30 minutes before they turn the water off. I have asked them to please let their subcontractor know to do that. Thank you very much. Thanks again for showing up.
All right, thank you. And next is Councilmember Brantley.
Good evening. Thanks everybody for being here. Thanks for those that are joining in online. Just a few comments that I have. The first is it's fall season. Dickinson Girls Softball is looking for sponsors for their fall season. So if you or your employer are interested in sponsoring Dickinson Girls Softball for the fall season, please look them up on Facebook for sponsoring their season. Also, Dickinson Little League is registering for fall baseball. So if you've got a little one, get them involved in baseball, get them signed up. You can find them on Facebook as well. Also want to remind everybody about the Hope Community Center and their family nights on Friday night at 6 o'clock at Living Faith Outreach. If you haven't had a chance to go by there, swing by and check out the community center that they've opened with Living Faith Outreach at 6 o'clock on Fridays. Want to recognize Valiant Church and the job that they did on their service Sunday, working with Keep Dickinson Beautiful and the cleanup job that they did a couple of Sundays ago. So thank you to Valiant Church. This week's staff recognition, I want to, it was mentioned earlier, but I want to especially recognize the Dickinson Volunteer Fire Department for the work that they do and that they've done, and especially our council member, Mark Townsend. Thank you for everything that you do and your service to our community. Also want to recognize our assistant fire marshal this week, Amber Phillips. She does an excellent job. Thank you so much for what you do, Amber, the hard work that you're putting in. I know you're super busy, and thank you for your dedication to Dickinson. Thank you. That's all I got, Mayor.
All right, thank you. And next, Councilman Townsend.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. That's it.
All right, and Councilwoman Simpson.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, and thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. We appreciate your input in person and, of course, online. I want to start by thanking the Dickinson Police Department and Chief Barrison for bringing such a large show of officer support to the community-wide back-to-school fair last Saturday at Dickinson High School. It was great to see so many officers interacting with the public and people shaking hands, people taking pictures, and then also people checking out Aries, the K9. I would also like to thank the Dickinson Public Library and the municipal courts for coming to this event to share some information. And of course, Derek Hunt from the Emergency Management and the wonderful Dickinson Fire Department, as well as our amazing public works staff. The police and the fire and the public works all stood outside all day long next to their vehicles and their equipment and their boats and their tractors so that kids and families could check them out, get inside, take some pictures. So that was really great to show so much support. So thank you for your time on a weekend. I just want to say also thank you to Theo for making this partnership happen between the school district and the city. Together, we served around 2,000 people with school supplies from M.I. Lewis, and then free haircuts, care of Valiant Church, and Salty Cuts, who provided haircuts to students and families around the community. Bill already hit on this, but school starts on August 21st. That's transition day. August 21st is a transition day for students entering pre-K, K, 5, 6, and 4, 5, 6, and 9. Those are kids entering a new school for the very first time, so they get 1 day of practice before they begin school. And then all students begin on August 22nd. Registration is going on now, so please visit dickinsonisd.org/back-to-school for all things back to school. Finally, later this week, I will be meeting with Captain Jekyll and Sergeant Montgomery to discuss traffic plans for the Christmas on the Bayou Parade taking place on Thursday, December 7th. That's hosted by the Dickinson Rotary Club. And this year we're going to be partnering with True Cross again for the first time in a while to be beginning the parade at True Cross and then ending it at City Hall. So look for more information about that coming soon. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And Councilman Simpson.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council, staff, citizens, those in person and online. Welcome. I would like to start by extending my condolences to the family of Pastor Amos Sowell, longtime senior pastor of Mount Olive Baptist Church in Dickinson, Texas. He will be sorely missed, advocate for the community. Dickinson Ministerial Alliance, was vice president of the Galveston County Long-Term Recovery Group right after Hurricane Harvey, and glad to call him a colleague and friend. So I extend my condolences to the family of Pastor Sowell and the Mount Olive Baptist Church family. The visitation will be one on August 18th at Mount Olive Baptist Church, 2902 MLK, Dickinson, Texas. Then there'll be another visitation on August 19th at 10 a.m. at Greater St. Matthew's Baptist Church in Hitchcock, with the celebration of life starting at 11 a.m. For that. Since the last meeting, I had the opportunity to attend the Houston Galveston Area Council Economic Development Administration meeting. Something we are trying to do as a region is coordinate our efforts to go for federal funds. What we've learned over the end of the last administration and this current administration is that if the region does not come together to ask for funds, the federal government will deny pretty much every request from that region. So we had a good meeting about how to try to coordinate our efforts to go for those funds so that they just don't say, well, this region doesn't know what they're doing, and pass up those fundings. I also would like to extend kudos to all the first responders who responded to the Courtyards apartment fire. Had an opportunity to swing by and talk to some people. I also would like to extend kudos not only to the first responders, but Red Cross and M.I. Lewis, who partnered together to provide aid for those people right after this. And I'd also like to note that on August 19th, as well, Faith United Methodist Church will be having its back to school shopping spree. Again, on 2205 Avenue G. That is a fundraiser. Well, not a fundraiser. It is an initiative of the church that provides new clothes to school-age children. That's sort of its claim to fame, that they give out new clothes, usually one or two outfits per child. While supplies last. It'll start at 8 a.m. at Faith UMC in Dickinson, Texas. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. I'd also like to welcome everyone this evening. I just have a few comments. Kind of talking about going back to school. One thing I'm really happy about this year is that there's going to be a big change over by the high school for the first time in many years. Caroline Street should be completed by that time. It has been in a horrible state of disrepair for many years. Having that shored up, I think, will be great for people that hit that area. I know the construction has not been too fun. It never is. I do want to thank Theo and Alexis and anyone on the staff that worked on that to get that moving. So that'll be a huge improvement. And that's kind of one of the big complaints that we often get. So also want to thank Dickinson ISD for inviting me out to their new employee lunch yesterday. It was good to see so many new people out at the school district. And to have the opportunity to speak very briefly. But as someone that teaches, I appreciate what you all do. Also, I'll join in. Thanks to the fire department for working on that apartment fire. Those things happen, unexpectedly. That's the whole point of having a fire department on standby to go out there. They did a great job with it, and I'm glad that we have in the community and for everything that they do. And then lastly, I'm going to close with this. I posted this on Facebook today, but our Dickinson legend, Mr. Gene Krantz, is celebrating his 90th birthday. I believe it is today, actually. Those of you who don't know who that is, shame on you that you don't know, but he is of Apollo 13 fame. He was very instrumental in navigating that entire crisis, getting the astronauts home safe. Very well respected, well regarded, is the creme de la creme of Dickinson, and we're blessed to have had him here in in the community for so many years. So happy 90th birthday, and thanks for everything that you've done. With that, we'll move on and go to item 4B, the city manager update. And I'll turn it over to our city manager, Theo Malonzo.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. First, I just want to get you up to speed on our Hughes Road project, which is our diversionary canal project that also includes improvements along the railroad track as well. We're at a 90% design phase. It took a little bit of time for Hewitt-Zollars to make the progress necessary because of the conflicts all along, especially the Hughes Road portion of the project once you get to State Highway 3 and east. But we're getting ready for that submittal so we can then begin the process of letting the project and beginning to figure out the contractor and to work through on the ground issues that are not just on paper. Also wanted to let everyone know that we are still moving forward with the Moore's Addition siphon project. That's dealing with moving stormwater westerly from Moore's Addition across a pipeline corridor so that water can efficiently flow into Benson Bayou. The goal is that if there's enough funding allocated, that we would like to use some of that funding to also help with the dredging of Benson Bayou itself, because we are adding water to that system. So we want to make sure that we're also dredging it so they can handle that increased amount of water as well. We are looking at the next portion of the West Gum drainage improvement project. We are applying for about a $7.6 million project there, which would be about 3,000 feet of channel widening. So we are hopeful that TDM and FEMA come back with a positive recommendation, considering we did get funding for phase 1 of West Gum. So just stay tuned for that. But that application is in. We have met all the requirements. Now we're just waiting for a final consideration there. Mayor alluded to the Caroline Street portion of the ARPA project. You'll also see 44th, 45th, and Illinois being worked on as we speak. Our contractors haven't been out to that portion so that we could hurry up and finish Caroline because of the disruption to the bus transportation that occurred by, if we were to leave Caroline closed. So we wanted to rush, get Caroline finished, so that by the time school started, that the buses could run there. And then we're going to finish up 44th, 45th, and Illinois. So don't fret. They're coming back. They're not leaving it in that condition. Also, we are looking at working with the EDC, because we have been working on 44th, 45th, and Illinois, which kind of is in that downtown area. And one of the things that we used, city used some ARPA funding for that. EDC is going to be working with us on especially with the Water Street project, adding volume of traffic, finding like that second outlet from Water Street, not just going up to 517 from Medical Park, but to maybe have the opportunity to improve the roads on the backside along the way, including Pabst, as it comes out onto 517. So we'll be working on that in this coming fiscal year. So just kind of be on the lookout. That's going to be another area where we're going to be improving drainage and improving streets as well. So we'll be all working together on that. We are, what I wanted to bring up with Courtyard Park Apartments is that, to thank Red Cross and MI Lewis, their help, was instrumental to 15 families that needed to be relocated after such a disaster. And it's always hard to, focus on one group of people because there's so much going on at one time. But it was great to have Red Cross and MI Lewis working together to think about the families, not just so as the fires were dying down, we already had the support system in place so that people didn't have to be worried that night. if they were going to get help. And, that's really huge for families and children who are distressed to know that they're going to have a roof over their head and have support from the community and nonprofits. So thank you to them, along with our fire and police and all the first responders who had to coordinate to get that done. Unified Development Code, we finished our review of Module 1 of UDC, and we're moving into Module 2 to look as a staff review, and we have members of the community who are serving as our ordinance advisory committee as well. So we are moving along. UDC still probably about 9 months out before we'd be ready for review and for public hearings and things of that nature, but we are moving steadily along on the UDC. Another thing I wanted to bring to council's attention is one of the things that we're working on through this budget, but also just operationally, is moving our court into becoming a court of record, meaning that we would have the recording ability for transcription. That's huge for us because at that point, appeals out of municipal court in Dickinson would be a traditional appeal. Right now, because we don't record everything, then a lot of appeals that would go up to the county are then considered what we call de novo review, meaning the case starts all over again. Evidence gets re-entered, things of that nature. What this will allow us to do is to move all of our demolitions and other substandard buildings to move to our municipal court to be prosecuted by our prosecutor. And we'll see a much more efficient timeline for those demolitions. Kudos to Todd and the crew. Travis, our deputy building official, we've already gotten 2 buildings put on demolition order. Now they have 30. One has a 30-day review and a 120-day review to remediate the situation. But we do have our first 2 demo orders under Todd done. And actually at the next building standards meeting, we have 6 buildings coming for building standards demolition. So, but then eventually, once it becomes a court of record, those cases would move to municipal court and work under with Gina, our administrator of a court, to be put on a docket. Our conversion to Encode, this was something very early on. We had an antiquated finance system, and so Encode has been in conversion. Right now, our payroll system is currently being rolled out to being live. We are finishing up, so we'll have the full general ledger, AP, and everything done hopefully by the end of this calendar year with Encode 10, which is the most modern system out there in municipal finance. So we're almost done with that. Lastly, I'm back from the state of Virginia. I was at the Senior Executive Institute for 2 weeks at the University of Virginia, working in training with local government officials from coast to coast, from California to Virginia, North Carolina, and many states in between. Learned a lot about organizational communication amongst staff, myself, council manager relations. Was really a breath of fresh air to hear different organizations' takes on structure and things of that nature. And one of the big things I got out of it the most was really, remembering that, council and staff working as a team, that it's not adversarial, because if you're adversarial, you're not working for the community, was a huge part of our second week of training. So I thought that was really great to hear, because we did get to hear the horror stories of some cities out there and counties out there. So really great 2 weeks. I'm a graduate now, so I'm glad to be back from Virginia. It was still 95 degrees, so it didn't really help me being north. So I came back to Texas. So thank you very much. That's all I got.
All right, thank you. Move on to item 5, public comments. Members of the public are invited to give comments at this time, lasting not longer than 3 minutes. Comments may be general in nature or may address a specific agenda item and should be directed at the entire council, not individual members of council or staff. Any speaker making personal attacks or using vulgar or profane language shall forfeit his or her remaining time and shall be seated. In compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, the city council may not deliberate. All right, we have a few items this evening. So first of all, we have Mr. Wally Dietz. Welcome back. You've been here since you've rolled off, but yeah.
Is this on? Yeah. Wally Dietz, 5201 Dussel Drive, Dickinson, Texas. I'm here to address your executive session potential discussion and then the next agenda item, settlement with Scott Jones. In my opinion, whatever his case is totally without merit. You should in no way settle with this man. I know TML probably is typically applying a lot of pressure for you to go ahead and settle, because you may end up spending a little more money if he decides to proceed with the litigation. But sometimes you just have to do what's right. And in this case, not settling with him is what's right. In case you haven't talked to people who witnessed in this very room his rant where he was making threats, and I think he even pulled a knife. I think there may be video of that around here. I would encourage you to look at that before you make a decision to settle with this guy. So please take that into consideration.
You said you had a comment about the
Well, you have two agenda items. You have the executive session.
one, so I didn't know. Oh, I thought you meant that. Okay.
No, and then after that, you have, when you come back out, take action. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, we also have, Susan also signed up.
Sue Emmett, 3508 Hill Avenue. How's everybody? I have an opinion. Are you surprised? I think it's wrong to go to one meeting a month. Let me tell you why. We all are looking at transparency in our elected officials. I think that me a little bit, public a lot maybe, may see this as an attempt to be covert. I would like for y'all to really, really think this over hard. 2 times a month is not that much. I know everybody's busy, and I know I'm old and I have more time than most, but think about what's good for the city of Dickinson and think about what the citizens are looking at. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right, next, now we have one person signed up for agenda item number 7, and then there's also, what's the last name, Louise? Yes. Are you also here for item 7? Or are you just general comment? I'm just here for the variance. For the variance, okay, I just, okay. All right, with that, let me explain something real quick. So the special meeting is at 6 o'clock today because we have some budget items on this meeting. So because of that, the notice that went out for the public hearing for item 7 says 7 o'clock. And so we legally cannot consider the item until 7 o'clock. So because of that, it's right now.
Put my mic on. Okay. Right now it's 6:28. So we're going to rearrange the agenda a bit here to get to a few other items so that it can be 7 o'clock before we consider that item. All right. I do apologize for that. I just kind of slipped through the cracks with that. So just understand. So also for council and for the audience and everybody following along, we're going to rearrange the agenda a bit. We're going to move item 6. Actually, we're going to move item 6 towards the end. So we'll do that one. We'll do that one after the executive session, and we'll move item 7 to go after item 8. All right. So next item that we're going to cover, just to keep everything straight, is going to be item 8. And yeah, we'll get to item 8A, then we'll do item 7, and then we'll do item 6 at the end, right before adjournment. All right. So please help keep me straight in case I messed that up. All right. So moving on, item 8A, discussion concerning ordinance 1012-2022B to amend chapter 18-20 property owner notification and 18-24 city council hearing and action of the code of ordinances, changing the mailing distance requirement. Do we have a motion on this item?
This is not a motion item, sir.
It is not a motion. Oh, it's discussion only. Thank you. All right. So I'll turn it over to Yvonne Briscoe.
The reason for this item is because At the end of last year, the city council did pass an ordinance changing the notice requirement. And at that time, y'all asked for a review in 6 months. And so if it's something that you would like to consider changing again, that would still need to go through the public hearing process with planning and zoning and commission. But it's just for y'all to have that information to decide if you want to move forward or if you like the way the ordinance was changed.
Any feedback after your 6 months you'd like to give the council as they kind of look over your statistics? I mean, I guess burden on staff, cost, because those were the two big ones, was burden on staff and was it cost effective or more
What we
cost?
ended up doing, part of that ordinance was we no longer send them certified. We're sending them standard mail. So cost has gone down. We also adopted a new fee schedule. And in that fee schedule, what we did is did flat fees across the board. So I kind of filtered that in. The fee went up, but I'm no longer charging, we're not charging postage separately or anything like that. So fees wise, it's pretty much kind of the same. Some people are paying a little bit more, some a little bit less, depending upon what that postage was. So cost wise, I think that's really good right now. On staff, we did get new equipment that will fold stuff, envelopes, which is helping. We're sending quite a few more letters, but it's been okay on staff.
All right. Does anyone have any comments on this item? Anything? Councilman Shay?
Yes, and I believe that we set that distance no matter the size of the parcel where this was going on.
That's
And I
correct.
think we were going to look to see if larger parcels possibly needed a larger ring to notify. Something 4 acres going to 1,500 feet or whatever the discussion was. I was not on council when
Yeah,
that
the
happened.
discussion that we had back then was to do commercial different than we were doing residential. Commercial like request affect more people than residential. Usually the residentials are going to be something like a building setback that goes to a variance or something like that. So we talked about the zoning and if it was commercial versus residential, there being different requirements. But I don't think we ever brought anything with the different size parcels.
Okay.
What ends up happening, the smaller parcels, because they're smaller parcels, they notice a whole lot more people because smaller parcels are surrounded by smaller parcels. So they just get a lot more notices get sent out for the 750 buffer area.
So what is the notice on commercial? now?
So right now, across the board, all public hearings require a 750
Okay.
notice area.
Okay. And we were going to look at possibly making that larger because
Yeah, so
commercial-
state code has 200. And most cities pretty much do that. There's only a couple cities that I looked at that doesn't do more than that, and they do 300. We did 750, and it was a discussion back then to maybe do 1,000.
Okay.
Do we have any thoughts on that either way? Councilman Lynn?
Yeah, so I remember the discussion we had, and I remember 1,000 feet being suggested. I thought it was a bit overkill, and I think that we found a middle ground with 500, and that's what we're going to now, right? That's the
We
announcement.
went to 750.
750?
that's what
750
we're
is
at
what you've
now,
done the analysis
750.
on? Okay, my mistake. But based on this 750 and not the 500, so the removal of the certified mail allowed you to compensate
100%.
staff effort, okay. All right, that was it. That's all I
Okay.
had.
Other comments? I mean, I'll say for myself, I'm not hearing y'all say that it's a problem or anything.
So yeah, I think it's fine. I mean, I would caution council on going to notices of thousands of feet out because you're talking about a situation where you are if you're talking about staff getting burdened, if you're going to say, well, okay, if you have a 20-acre piece of property, we want to go 1,500 feet around. Well, you're about to take an entire section of the entire city, and you're like, here, everybody, and it's so out of line. If you're talking about like things you want to do to stop businesses coming to Dickinson, do these type of things. Is my point. Because then you're so out of line. It's one thing to be 750 versus 300, 500, 200. But when you're like, okay, the notice requirement, I'm going to have to pay, and then I may have to go to public hearing and I have to deal with the property owners of 250 feet versus 1,500 feet. Well, I'm going to go to a city that has 250. I'm not going to deal with this.
Not to mention, I'd say, I think at some point you're going to start notifying people who really could care less.
I mean, at
whatever,
some
because
point,
this is all kinds of changes and it could be things that they really don't care about.
well, you're at a third of a mile away
Yeah.
at that point.
And I wasn't suggesting, I know we kind of split that. I'm not suggesting to increase it, but I'm not hearing any real heartburn about the change that we made. Councilman Linton again?
I can't find the 750. My bad. So can you identify what page that's on? Because I see nothing but
Are
500
you in the agenda?
on the agenda.
Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah.
It's actually, so on one of the attachments
Mhm.
was the original ordinance from 2022. And it's in that document where it shows what the ordinance was changed to.
I see it.
You
Okay.
see it?
Yeah. The 200 and the 500 were using two separate comparisons, and that's why.
Yeah. And that was because of staff's recommendation when I first brought it forward.
Just don't tell anybody I made a mistake on the math.
All right. Any other comments on this? Okay, we'll move on. Item 8B, consideration and possible action to approve an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Dickinson, Texas, approving the 2023 appraisal roll, providing for the incorporation of preamble and providing a repealer clause, a severability clause, and an effective date.
Move to approve.
There's a motion approved by Councilman Brantley, second by Councilman Schick. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll take this to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Move on to item 8C, consideration and possible action to approve the no new revenue and voter approval rates for tax year 2023.
Move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion approved by Councilman Simpson and a second by Councilman Brantley. Is there any discussion here?
Yes.
Yes, Councilman Towns.
Is this the one, this is for the tax rate itself, correct?
This will be the next item, sir.
That's D.
This one here is just us approving the actual, like what we got from the county.
Okay.
Next item is the one you
What we
need.
discussed is the next one.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Any discussion here? Hearing none, we'll take this to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8D, consideration and possible action on a proposed tax rate for FY 2023-2024 and set the date for the public hearing of the FY 2023-2024 budget.
Move to approve.
Second.
You have to have a
You need to
actual
propose, you have
number
to
needs
actually
be
have a number.
proposed. So Councilman Brantley, you need to propose a number based on something that we did on item 8C. Or like, for example, if you're wanting to do no new revenue, I think you could just say, I'm going to approve the no new revenue rate because we
Right.
just enshrine what that is.
Correct. Or if there's a specific number other
Yeah.
than the no
So if
new
you don't want to
revenue
do the
rate.
no new revenue rate or some other number, but if you want to do the no new revenue rate, you can just say that.
I amend my motion to approve the no new revenue rate.
All right, there's been a motion to approve
to propose the.
I'm
no
sorry,
new-
yes, correct.
Propose
Yes.
the no new revenue rate.
There's been a
Thank
motion
you.
to propose, yes, we can approve. There's been a motion to propose the FY 2023 tax rate as the no new revenue rate. Is there a
Second.
second? There's a second by Councilman Simpson. Any discussion? Councilman
Discussed
Townsend?
Yesterday, if you set this rate, if I'm correct, we can't go up.
Correct.
We can go down.
Correct. You might.
It's on. So if I understand it correct, if we set the no new rate, you can go down, but you can't go up.
Correct.
But you're allowed to go to 3.5 cent or to 3.5%, which is like a penny and a half or something like that.
Correct. Yes.
You
sir.
you can still go with the no revenue rate, but you at least, if something happens in the budget, payroll or whatever,
Mhm.
it gives you a little wiggle room.
Yes, sir. So, and I think yesterday when we kind of discussed the what kind of would the 3.5% would be, some would be somewhere in the neighborhood of instead of what's the, I'm sorry, no new revenue. I don't have it right in front of me. It's 30.
0.67.
A penny is about $150,000.
Yeah. But on the, what's the no new revenue?
The no new revenue rate is 0.366870.
That's right. And so what we had come to was a 3.5%. If we were kind of looking at tabulating at 3.5%, you're looking at 39.97. So, I mean, excuse me, 37.97. So you're looking at about a penny and 29 cents would be the 3.5% under normal circumstances for voter approval. Of course, we have the 380 agreements that throw that off, but
Okay.
just so you
Is
know,
there-
that's
Well, one other thing is if you propose a rate, above the no new revenue rate, you have to have a public hearing on the tax rate.
Harrison, pull your mic
Yeah.
up to your mouth if you don't mind. Thank you.
If you propose a rate that is above the no new revenue rate, you have to have a public hearing on the tax rate, which we did that last year. So in the agenda item, I didn't have the date for that. So if it was an amount proposed above that, then that would still be on the same day as the public hearing on the budget that is in the agenda item.
Yeah, we would just have, it would be a second public hearing.
Okay.
So, any,
Is there any comments or action or?
I
don't
just
know
took,
if you're wanting to do it, you would need to move for an amendment or something, but
no, I just brought it up for, I brought
Okay.
it up for discussion because we discussed it in the meeting yesterday because I'm not proposing a tax increase, don't get me wrong, but you're tying your hands.
Mhm.
If there's things in there you want, I know they've cut the EMS.
Mhm.
Myself, I'd like to see it left in there and try to hire some people because we're running one ambulance and we got three. And we're bringing people in, but there's other things you might want to consider. But I just brought it up for discussion.
Understood. Just speaking for myself, I really don't. I think especially in the economy that we're in with the inflation things where they are, I don't really see any. I don't really think it would be right to raise taxes at this point. So I'm happy with the no new revenue rate. We'll talk more about it in item 8E, but I think the budget's doing a lot and bringing in a little more money with new appraisal items, things like that. So speaking for myself, I plan on voting for the new revenue rate. So I'd say just to leave it and move on. That's just me.
My only comment was to simplify it for the people in the audience. 22-23, the no new revenue tax rate was 0.388139. Fiscal year 23-24, no new revenue tax rate is 0.366870. If we proceed with the 22-23 rate, it is higher than the 23-24 rate, which will require a public hearing. Staff recommends proposing a tax rate of 0.366870 divided by 100, which will not require a public hearing. Those were the notes. I just wanted to mention it out loud. It may simplify it for some people.
In here. All right, hearing none, we'll take this to a vote. All those in favor, we have to do a roll call vote on this one as well. So I just remembered, you told me for the meeting. All right, so we'll just go down the line here and we'll start with Councilman Linton.
I approve.
All right, Councilman Schick.
Yes.
Councilman Brown.
Aye.
Councilman Townsend.
Aye.
Councilwoman Simpson. Councilman Simpson.
Aye.
And Mayor Skipworth also votes aye. So the motion carries. All right, move on to item 8E, presentation and discussion concerning the 2023-2024 budget for the city of Dickinson. This is a discussion item only. So
If you
who
don't
wants
mind,
to
I'll
kick
start
this
us
off?
off
All right.
and kick
All
it
right.
over to
Turn it over
Harrison, if
to
that's
the
okay.
city manager.
Thank you. Council, I was going to go over real quickly a few of the changes from the last budget you saw to this one. The biggest change is that we wanted to show you what the cost, enrolling into Social Security next year would look like. So that's been pulled out because it won't roll in until next year at the earliest. So that's resulted in basically a $298,000 reduction in expenditure to the general fund, $62,500 in the street maintenance fund, $21,350 in the BAS department, and $2,800 in the VOCA grant fund for our victim of crime abuse grant funded employee. So with what you'll see in this budget is assuming a no new revenue rate, what you'll basically have is the ability to do quite a few initiatives, which I know that you'll probably be interested in discussing further. But I wanted to kind of bring up that big change in the budget before I handed it over to Harrison. Harrison, did you want to go over an overview real quick of kind of some things that you wanted to highlight before we open it up for questions to council?
Yeah, the other thing that changed was when Theo proposed the budget earlier, we were going on the estimated rolls. And now that we had the certified rolls, they actually came in higher than the estimated. So it actually gave us a little bit more property tax revenue. And you can see that if you look at the general fund summary, where the FY23-24 proposed budget, I think when we did the budget presentation, it was negative 300 and some thousand, almost 400,000. And now it's positive 72,705. And that's partially because of the Social Security coming out and partially because a little bit more property tax money. So those were the two biggest changes. And, you know, I think that a lot of the budget itself, I think it was well put together. It's you know, if you don't know the process, it's a collaboration that starts from the departmental level and their input, and they really help build this budget from the foundation up. And then there's meetings with the departments, the department heads and city manager, and then we take it from there to prepare this budget book. So it's a pretty thorough process that starts in probably about mid-May and is still continuing to this day. I prepared, included in the agenda tonight is an overview, probably 6 pages long, where I kind of hit like on various items in revenues, then each department to give a little bit of highlights on what are some new things, what are some changes from the current fiscal year to help you out.
Also, you know, just to hit some highlights, just so you know, in the revenues, you'll see a projected decrease in revenue because we expended grant funding. West Gum Bayou project, you know, we have to show that as a revenue to the city. So you'll see that so when you see that the decrease in overall revenue went down, you'll see it because of the grant funding. Also, one of our 380 agreements came to an end. That would on its face seem like that would be daunting for our general fund. That is not necessarily the case because most of that 380 would have been sales taxes we generated that would have then gone largely to that business as part of the economic development agreement. In this scenario, this 380 had been historically been called back by the comptroller's office, so we were always kind of having issues with the comptroller's office and that 380 recipient. So this really financially is doesn't really do a whole lot, but we're having to get to the fiscal reality that we were never getting sales taxes from that 380 agreement, or at least not to a large amount. Also, I wanted to draw your attention to a couple of things. One is the license and permits portion of the revenues being down. That really is not down to reality. What was going on with that has a lot more to do with down due to a lot of the remodels post Harvey were done. And so we saw a slowdown there. And so my expectation is that we're probably going to settle and start creeping up again. But a lot of the work that was done post Harvey was done kind of in that 2020 fiscal year cycle, the 2021 fiscal year cycle. And then by the 22 one, you know, it's starting to dwindle down. So we are going to show more reality than what actually happened last year going forward. I think this year is more indicative of next year than previous years. So also our interest income is up because, well, interest rates are up all over the place. So that is a plus for the revenue portion of it. One of the things I do want to highlight is that the police department, we are building in through our CBA a 3-year agreement. We're in year 2 of that collective bargaining agreement in which we had a 3-year tiered salary adjustment of 12%, 4%, and 4% in those 3 years to get us at least not at parity with sister agencies, but to get us at least within the ballpark. A very cursory, very quick look across our sister agencies of the region, and we had fallen behind pretty severely over the years, and so I was very proud that in year 1 we could get a 12% increase, and that we're going to be adding a 4% and another 4% in salary adjustment as well. So I did want to highlight that. And I know that our our Dickinson Police Officers Association is appreciative of that. Another thing I was going to bring up is that we were able to add some equipment. We are actually putting $100,000 into the vehicle replacement fund while we are drawing down some of the funds to purchase equipment. Let's see, where's that at? I know it's in here. There we go. We are in this budget projecting 2 police patrol vehicles, a code enforcement vehicle, and 2 public works pickup trucks as well. So this budget does have things going on. We are working in the street fund on being able to finish the Cheyenne subdivision project. We had those major emergency culverts that were collapsing, beginning the process of collapsing. So we wanted to finish that project out. So that'll be finished within our operating budget as well. So we do have a lot of things that we are doing in this budget, even though we do have a few things that, weren't necessarily going our way on the revenue side. Anything you want to add to that, Harrison?
Yeah, and along with the replacement vehicles, we're also looking at 2 heavy-duty dump trailers for Public Works. We found that was probably a better avenue than dump trucks. Public Works Superintendent Alexis Santiago talked about that a lot of people now use the heavy-duty dump trailers instead of dump trucks. They're more versatile. So that's in there as well. And also in Public Works is to refurbish the bulldozer that we currently have to get that back up to speed. And it also includes years 2 and 3 of the equipment leases that we did like in FY22 that added a lot of things like the combo vac and the
Marchmaster.
yeah. There are about 4 or 5 pieces of equipment that I think it was like $1.5 million of purchases that we pay about $200 and some thousand a year to make that happen. And then also in the budget is some EOC and some EMS equipment. And I think Derek may know more about that, like the I may start talking and it'll be the wrong
Okay.
stuff.
Didn't know that was my cue to
Containment and
come up.
stuff like that. I know oxygen containment.
Yeah, so oxygen containment system, essentially it's a safety container for when we're refilling our portable oxygen. Just allows in case there was some sort of explosion, it's just a containment to keep the crew safe. And then replacing a cardiac life heart monitor. So replacing one of our older LifePak 12s with a newer generation LifePak 15.
Some furniture.
And then replacing the furniture in our day room that was donated to us 5 or 6 years ago that's kind of fallen apart. So buy new furniture, replace that.
What about those weather?
Oh, and then the weather stations, that's
The weather
right. Yeah, to put at each of the city facilities, city-owned buildings. That way it'll build out our live weather data that we have for monitoring during weather events.
Okay.
Anything else you want to highlight, Harrison, before we turn it over for questions from the council?
I think it's about it, other than like with the ARPA expenditures. You need to understand that in late FY21, we received half the money from ARPA because unlike a regular grant, ARPA was paid up front versus regular grants. You normally spend the money and you got to submit and get an approval process to be reimbursed. ARPA, half of it in about August of 21 was paid to the city. And then in August or September of 22, the other half was. So very little of that time period was any of it spent. So now it was kind of broken up between IT projects and street projects. And we expect, based on what we're doing this year and what we're going to do in 24, that it will expend the funds because you have a certain time period to expend it all or you have to return it. So you should see all of the ARPA expended in FY24. But that's why you may see when you look at Fund 3 that there's a big difference in expenditures versus revenue. It's because in FY21 and FY22, we actually received the money and we had no expenditures or very little expenditures.
All right. Yeah, we'll take questions and comments. Before we start, I would say if we get to 7:00, which we're likely to, I would ask that someone move to table this item, and then we can do the public hearing and let folks that are here for that take care of business, and then we can pick this item back up right after that. Just want to say that when we start. But anyway, with that said, questions or comments on this? Anyone? Councilman Schick?
Yeah, I just have a question. The heavy duty dump trailers, do we have the vehicles to pull those? Or is that going to take a separate vehicle to do that?
No, Alexis, yeah.
Or-
Yeah, his answer is yes.
Uh,
Yeah, that was a question I had too.
So we have flatbed pickups that are dualies that'll pull those trailers. Branch Construction or contractors use the same exact trailers and pull them with regular F-150s. So the cost of the dump trucks skyrocketed. It was like $258,000 for one dump truck.
Mhm.
The cost for, I think, 2 or 3 trailers was only $38,000.
I just was concerned in an evacuation situation, we did use dump trucks. And I want to make sure that we have enough vehicles to pull trailers in case we run into that again.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We still have the 3 dump trucks, but we do have 2 flatbed trucks that will pull those trailers.
Okay.
All right. Other questions or comments? Councilman Linton?
The difference in property taxes, is what, 500 between what the handout you just gave me and the previous budget?
I think property. I was going to say, I think total revenue, I think we were supposed to be about 75,000.
And
500 is what I,
yeah, yes.
okay.
Yes, because what happened was there were, when we proposed, so what happened is our initial roll, which is what we worked off of, had about $600 million worth of property under protestation still. And so we had to kind of calculate historically what we kind of knew that was about where the number was going to be, but we wanted to be extra conservative in our first budget. Let's just show them kind of, where it's going to land if everything under protest wins at the protest hearing in favor of the property owner. But we kind of in the back of our mind, whenever we were kind of looking at historically where those protests land, we were somewhere in I think we ended up saying about 75 to 100, correct? I mean, when you and I were sitting in the office, we kind of figured it was going to be about a $75,000 increase in the revenue with the way the protests would shake out. So it ended up coming to that.
Plus saw a little shift in that with going with the no new revenue rate. The no new revenue rate at the 0.36680. It is the combination of your M&O and your debt service rate. So
M&O,
it's your operations.
okay.
So basically the general fund.
Maintenance and
revenue
operations.
is M&O. But when we got the rates calculated, the debt rate was actually a little bit less than what last year's debt rate was.
Mhm.
Because the debt rate is the rate that's calculated to pay the interest and principal. No extra, no less, it's that amount. So it was a little bit less. So as Theo was saying, when I looked at calculating the property tax revenue for the original proposed budget, I used the preliminary rolls and our current rates. So that's why we got a little bit more money added to the general fund. Even though we're going with the no new revenue rate, it's because the debt service fund had a little bit less projected revenue because of its tax rate.
And the two major impacts were the increase in property taxes revenue and what was the second item you mentioned earlier?
Well, the 380, he's talking about what's that?
The revenue positive was for property tax. And we took out Social Security.
Social Security, that was it. That was the second item.
So we had a little bit extra revenue wise in the property tax. And less in the expenditure wise because we took out social security. And that was the major difference.
Other questions or comments on this? Okay. We'll move along. All right. It is 7 anyway, so we'll just move on to item 7. Pull my agenda back up. All right. So item 7A, conduct a public hearing concerning a request for subdivision variance from Appendix A subdivision, Section 8, Standards and Specifications, Subsection J, Lot, Subsection 3, Frontage Requirement of the City of Dickinson Code of Ordinances. With such variance allowing a lot to front on a recorded access easement for the required frontage on a public street for a proposed subdivision of approximately 4.117 acres, generally located approximately 330 feet east of FM 646, approximately 390 feet north of 2nd Street, and legally describes Abstract 1M Austin Sur, part of lots 130, 130-7, Thaman's first sub. And we'll turn this over to the staff presentation, and we will convene the public hearing at 7 o'clock.
Good evening. So I'm actually going to pass this over to my intern, Abby. One of my main goals for my intern, because I am planning and zoning, is for them to present to council. So Abby's going to present this item.
All right. We'll be gentle. Thanks for being here.
Good evening. This property is located approximately 330 feet east of FM 646 and approximately 390 feet north of 2nd Street. It is a little over 4 acres directly behind Penny's Beer Garden. The property is currently zoned rural residential, and the owner is currently looking to sell the land in up to 4 different lots. What is requested is a subdivision variance allowing the property to front on a recorded access easement for the required frontage on a public street, and that's all staff has.
All right. Thank you. We'll move on to the applicant presentation. The applicant is here.
Joe Ruiz, owner of the 4 acres.
If you please give your address as well. We have to have your name and your address.
I do not have an address yet.
Wherever your home address is right now, even if it's not in the city.
14129 Holland Road, Dickinson, Texas.
Okay.
To me, it's very simple. I'm just requesting variance that would have the city of Dickinson recognize the existing entrance to the property so that we would be allowed to build 1 or 4 homes on that property that has been vacant for a very long time. And would really allow, whether it be my family or other families, to come into Dickinson and build a nice home, or 4, whatever the city would allow us to do. But first, it is my understanding that I need to get approval or have the city recognize the entrance so that we can build, go in and out, allow police, fire department, or whoever would have to go in there and make sure that we have safety as well. That's pretty much it, ladies and gentlemen. It's just a request for us to go ahead and build. Either have it ready for someone to come in and do it, or I would do it. But first, we need a road to get in there. And it would be great if you guys would allow me to go ahead and get that road, have that proper access, everything be legal, so that we can go ahead and build some nice, beautiful homes there, just like we have all around us. That would be a nice little contribution from us to the city of Dickinson to have a nice property for a nice family. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Next, we'll move on to the public comments section of the public hearing. We do have, I show 2 public comments on this item. The first one is Ellen Chacon.
Good evening. My name is Ellen Chacon. My address is 951 FM 646 Road North, Dickinson, Texas. My husband and I are the owners of the ingress-egress easement to the 4.12 acres. We did sell the property to the Ruizes about 9 years ago. And I did come to the city first, and then it went through to an attorney who drew up all the paperwork and went through a closing at the title company. We do fully support the easement variance for development of the property. We would like, it's been vacant for 9 years, and we would like to see the property develop. When the property was sold, it was sold to one owner. So as the process begins with the possible division of the property, we would appreciate consideration from you for us regarding the burden imposed with the possibility of up to 4 homes. I don't understand the process. Mr. Pruitt did try to explain to me that it is a long process, and I do understand that, and I appreciated that. But if it does develop with up to 4 homes, whether Mr. Reeves does it or if someone else comes in and does it, it does impose a burden on my husband and I on the increase in traffic in and out to 646, on the wear and tear of the road, and on our increased liability as the easement owners. So I just wanted to make that aware to you as the process begins, that that was a concern for us. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And we have Jill Ruiz signed up as well, but are you wanting just to speak in favor, or are you just here for the applicant? Okay, all right. You do. The next item is, that's the only comment we have then. The next item is applicant rebuttal. If you would like to respond to any of the comments that were just made, you can.
Again, Joe Ruiz. Hopefully this thing doesn't go the wrong way. Again, we simply just want to go ahead and develop the property. We are considerable. We do understand that the road's going to have to be developed as well, I guess you could say, whether it be gravel, concrete, or whatever it's going to take. Who would pay for that? We don't know yet. That's just, I think that the construction and the issue here is, the concern is who's going to take care of that road, and what the construction is going to be. But I'm just trying to get past this first step to get to that point, because by the time I get to say, okay, I want to go ahead and do the 4 houses as an example, and I go to the city and I present this plan, I believe that at that time you will let me know if it can be done or not. But first, I need the entrance. I'm just trying to get past step 1. That's it. I'm pretty sure that the city is going to dictate whether I can do 4 homes, 2 homes, 1 home. It doesn't matter. And at that time, you will let me know that road needs to be reconstructed. I'm pretty sure of that. And I'm sure that you have more experience than I do as far as that goes. But we're not just going to walk in there and tear up a road. And I mean, that's a road that we're going to use as well. So yes, I know that there's more work to come. But we're not just going to try to build 4 homes. The application was built with the intent to get that road behind us, and we would just wrote it up as 4 homes, not realizing that it would complicate things. So for that, I do apologize to everyone for that. But again, it's just a development process, whether it be 1 home, 4 homes. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, we'll adjourn the public hearing at 7:08 p.m. We'll move on to item 7B, consideration and possible action concerning making a recommendation for a subdivision variance from Appendix A subdivision, Section 8, Standards and Specifications, Subsection J, Lot Subsection 3, Frontage Requirement of the City of Dickinson Code of Ordinances, with such variance allowing a lot to front on a recorded access easement for the required frontage on a public street for a proposed subdivision of approximately 4.12 acres, generally located approximately 330 feet east of FM 646, approximately 390 feet north of 2nd Street, and legally described as Abstract 1M, Austin Sur, part of lots 130, 130-7, Thaman's first subdivision. Is there a motion on this item?
Approve with staff recommendations.
Say motion to approve along with staff recommendations.
I second it.
By Councilman Simpson, a second by Councilman Linton. Could we just, to be clear, say what those staff recommendations are? Yvonne?
So I'm going to pass this one along to Abby as well. And one thing that I want to be clear on is Planning and Zoning's Commission's recommendation is slightly different. The big one on staff's recommendation was we were recommending 18 months to have the final plat recorded, and Planning and Zoning Commission requested 24 months over the 18, but then they wanted the rest of staff's recommendations. So I'm going to let Abby go over just.
I'll amend my motion to include that part.
What part?
The extending it from 18 months to 24 months.
Okay, Councilman Linton, do you still agree with that?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Abby?
The first condition is that the plat must be recorded with Galveston County's clerk office within 24 months of the subdivision variance. Next, the configurations shown in figures A through G are included in the subdivision variance approval. Any other configuration will require a new application and approval. The next condition is that all lots must have a minimum 30-foot wide easement dedicated to ingress and egress. And finally, a proper turnaround is determined by the city's fire marshal office must be provided at the terminus of the required easement. And that's all the recommendations.
All right, thank you. Any discussion on this item? I actually have a couple questions on this myself. Let me go back here. Okay, so how large would these lot sizes end up being with the?
The property is actually zoned rural residential,
Okay.
which requires the lots to be a minimum of 1 acre.
Okay, so these would become 4 1-acre lots. Is that correct?
That's
Okay.
correct.
Assuming that it subdivides to 4.
Okay, assuming that, right? Okay. There was a lot said during the comments about the road over here. Is this a private road? Is this a? So there's an easement on it, but I just want to be clear.
The
that we're
only
talking
road
about-
is 646. So they're calling it a road, but they really mean that access easement.
Okay, got you. Okay,
that's
because I
the
was hearing
reason for the
road and I was
variance.
okay.
The
Understood.
reason is because they don't have a road.
Okay.
And I believe that is one of the, when you heard in the public comments, the neighbor that would be sharing this easement is that, well, at the sale from, say, 9 years ago, the anticipation was to have one neighbor to share that easement, but this would be up to 4 neighbors sharing that easement. So what this is, so just so you know, what we're dealing with right now is not even the subdivision of the property. Mr. Ruiz would not even be able to build one house on this property because our rules say that you must be fronting a public right of way to be able to build a home on. That's why he was saying, well, it doesn't matter if I have one house or 4 houses, I can't build anything on this property without the council variance allowing a building on property that off of a recorded easement. So I just want you to know that's really the conversation right now. But that's
okay. How long is the access road here?
I mean, the property right in front of it is Penny's Beer Garden. So so if they divide it into more than one lot, they're going to have to do additional accesses. So I'm going to go to these other ones because they're in yellow and it's easier to see.
Well, I guess I understand, and I do want to hear the additional access. So what's the actual length, though, of the existing road? Because we're talking about potential maintenance issues and stuff. I'm trying to get a sense of what. Ballpark's fine. It doesn't have to be like exact.
500 feet or so.
Okay.
I mean, it's.
So it's 363.
363. Okay.
What it looks like.
Well, that's what's existing. So we're also, again, if it's subdivided, you'd have the internal. Actually, Justin, let me ask this question. If this gets subdivided, the question becomes at subdivision, would this access easement need to be rolled into the city's road, or is that
That's
a
where I was
requirement?
going with this.
Is it a requirement that it go into the city system?
It's not. And just to reiterate what the manager said, all we're doing now, you're not even looking at the potential subdivision because the applicant can't even apply to have a plat in the city until you authorize a variance from your code to allow, instead of a public road, to be a private access easement, which, by the way, hasn't really been filed yet. And so that's why I was explaining to the neighboring property owner that this is going to be a long process. And so 24 months, even that extension is still pretty tight, because assuming that you grant this variance, then all that does is allow the Mr. Ruiz to submit an application for subdivision to the city. But in order for Yvonne's team to even, if you were to prove it as it is, in order for them to even start processing that, there has to be a recorded subdivision, which is going to take, it's a private side deal between the two property owners. And that's where the maintenance issues are going to be worked out. Because I assume that if it's true that that the original easement, which is north of the property now, the one that's in red and white, that if that was contemplated for just one homeowner, then there more than likely is going to be some maintenance issues that need to be discussed, because that's going to be more usage on that road if there's more than one property owner neighboring that property.
I'm thinking one possibility here, and this doesn't, it kind of relates to this, kind of doesn't, is I know like on Ivy recently, we went out, we paved that. It's a road. It should probably be a city road, but technically it's not. I'm wondering if it may just be appropriate down the line to look at doing something like that. But I'm not saying that we would per se, but I'm just kind of throwing out.
So to respond to that, Mayor Skipworth, one thing that sometimes staff will do is we could do a condition where they dedicate that as right of way as part of the plat. And maybe they have the exception that they don't build it to city standards, but then 30 feet's not going to be enough to meet our requirements for a road either, because we're going to require.
I see. Okay.
Does that make sense?
No, I get you. Makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, hashing all this out in a public meeting is not the place.
Understood. Okay. Just curious. All right. Are there any other questions or comments?
I guess on their questions. So we're only voting on that one piece of red up there. Is that the one with the bar across the driveway into Penny's Beer Garden?
So all that exists right now, if you were to take all the yellow lines out, some of those are existing easements, but the point of this is that regardless of on the property that's right of the big square there on the left. So now it's where the GC is on that pink, so the shaded part, that shaded part has access through a private easement, which is essentially that black line where that GC is on the pink box. Right now, if there's any subdivision at all, just platting alone, no construction, anything like that, platting alone, that the applicant cannot submit a plat to the city. It's going to be automatically rejected because it doesn't front a public road. So what the variance is for is to say, to recognize that existing private access easement as the access to the property instead of a public road. The second part of that variance, what you would, if you approve it as it's written now with the staff recommendations, is that because it's zoned rural residential, and this is not a zoning change, it's only about fronting private access easement. It's going to require the two property owners to work out the details and file a private access easement that's going to fall in line with whatever they agree with. And then that document then will allow the staff to accept the application and then go through the platting process. And that's where Mr. Ruiz is correct, is that he's got to satisfy every single code provision that you have when you're not granting him anything else. You're only doing this to allow him to enter the platting process, and then all other regulations apply. So it really is all that we're really talking about is on that map. It's that black line essentially through the GC, that pink box next left of the striped area, that you're going to recognize that private access easement as acceptable, for platting purposes, so he can submit an application. And then subsequent to your approval, assuming that you approve, but you're not required to, but if you approve it, then that's when the application starts, and he's got 24 months to do a lot of stuff, which is get a private access easement worked out with the property owner, and then get all the maintenance stuff. That's all comes at that time, and then how he's going to subdivide all those things, and that's going to be the Yvonne staff dealing with him, and any of those things. You're not waiving any of those rules. All those will apply as they go through.
All right. Any other questions or comments on this item? All right. Hearing none, we'll take.
Let me ask
Council
this.
Townsend.
Is this going to cause you problems down the road somewhere?
Oh, no, not this. I think really at the end of the day, what you have is a landlocked piece of property that would not be able to be developed. I think that as long as all the subdivision rules are met, and most importantly is that the access easement is a permanent easement that fire, police, and all other ambulances can get into the property, never be impeded. That is even though it's not a public road, that it is treated as a public road, in those type of ways, and that the maintenance is upkept properly and so forth. That's why it's important where, the city attorney speaking, is that this maintenance agreement, whatever gets agreed to by all parties before the actual subdivision, I think that's why it's going to be important for Mr. Ruiz to work with the neighbor to say, okay, if I'm going to subdivide, then and I'd like to subdivide the agreement needs to be very specific as to the maintenance of that road. So it shouldn't be a heartburn on our end. It really is just a lot of work over the next 24 months on their part to bring something that would meet all the requirements of the subdivision ordinance, to be
Still,
honest.
that easement is the one that has the metal gate across
Yes,
it now.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, the one that's just to the north of Penny's Beer Garden.
Right. We were out there on a down power line or something, and I seen the gate. It's the only reason I know it's there. Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I just,
Councilman Schick.
just another clarification on that. If we approve this tonight and then later the easement is determined not to be large enough to be accessed by a fire truck, ambulance, whatever, then that goes back to the property owners to work out that difference. We won't
So-
approve the plat
Correct.
unless we can get, I'm sorry.
Yeah. One of our conditions is a minimum 30-foot easement for every lot that comes in here. 30 feet wide is large enough for a residential property to have fire truck access.
Yeah, well, and specifically, we're talking about. I think he's talking about the actual current easement. If it's wide enough, or does that need to be widened?
There's not a current easement. They're going to have to create it.
Yeah. Well, okay. So, yes. So, yes. So, but it would need to meet all the subdivision requirements, and it'd have to have the agreement on maintenance and all of that.
Mhm.
Okay, understood. So, to answer your question, it has to meet all the requirements of the subdivision.
Yeah, and we included the proper turnaround approved by the fire marshal's office as part of the conditional approval.
I could add to your question, where that gate is that I was out there at the other day. If that gate is open, I can get a fire truck in there. That help you on that? As it sits today.
But can you get back to the 4 lots? Because it looks like there's a jog at the end of that.
Well, so to answer the question is that they would have to meet all the requirements, just like any other subdivision. At the end of the day,
We have a brush truck that we can drive back there. That's 4-wheel drive.
That review, that's where the fire marshal's a part of that review, because they'll be looking at turn races that may have to get straightened out, that may have to get worked through on the jog. But that's where the staff would go in pre-development and say, you need to fix that jog, or you need to, eat up some more of your property, cut in a little bit to make that more of an S or something. And but that would all get handled at pre-development.
We've done that before. We had, I think of one last year we did that dealt with that. All right. Any other?
Just to answer your question, the transfer document records that easement as a 30-foot wide ingress and egress easement. So it's recorded as 30-foot wide.
Okay.
Yeah, Councilman Linton.
Real quick. Needs to be recorded with the county clerk in 18 months, not 24, correct?
24 is
The
what
vote
we
we did was-
is what our motion was.
Okay.
Amend it to 24.
Any other comments? All right. Hearing none, we'll take this to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're going to item 9, executive session. Item 9A, consultation with attorney, section 551.071, Texas Government Code. Discussion with attorney regarding contemplated / pending litigation and regarding matters protected by the attorney-client privilege. Scott Jones versus City of Dickinson et al., cause number 22-CV-1880 in the 10th Judicial District Court of Galveston County, Texas. We will adjourn into executive session at 7:22 p.m. We'll reconvene from executive session at 7:40 PM, and we'll move on to item 10A, action items from executive session. Consideration of authorizing the city manager to execute a settlement agreement in Scott Jones versus City of Dickinson et al. Cause number 22-CV-1880 in the 10th Judicial District Court of Galveston County, Texas.
Move to authorize the city manager to enter into an agreement with Scott Jones contingent upon Economic Development Corporation approval.
Second.
All right, there's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I just, Mayor,
Councilman Simpson.
I just hope we get to a place where we start listening to legal advice. I think back to 2018, since I've been involved in public work, and every problem we've had, there's been somebody at the ready telling us this is what you need to do. And whether it was a board member or a council member or somebody, they always thought they were smarter than the lawyers or acted opposite of what they said. And then we got to engage TML. So I hope we can go forward with listening to legal advice.
All right. Any other comments?
Yeah, I'll address that
Questions?
directly because I sit on the EDC board, and I will tell you that it wasn't a matter of not listening to legal advice. It was a matter of city council at that time playing revisionist history with whether that budget was approved or not. So I apologize for my reaction. However, you're coming directly at me as an EDC board member, okay? And that's not what happened. It's what happened when we wanted to play revisionist history. But in good faith, I made decisions on the EDC board as an EDC board member in good faith.
That wasn't directed at you. And when I say board members, I was actually talking about other boards. But noted.
Thank you.
Any other comments? All right, hearing none, we'll take this to a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to item 6, the consent agenda. The following items are considered routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be a separate discussion on these items unless a council member requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and discussed after the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
There's a motion already on the floor to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second by Councilman Simpson. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? With Councilman Schick and Townsend voting no, motion carries. Move on to item 11, adjournment.
Second.
Motion approved by Councilman Townsend, second by Councilman Simpson. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned at 7:43 PM.